Okay, chapter 16, Big Business and Organized Labor. So what I hope to do with this video, as with all the videos, is to provide context, give you the big picture. As you get ready to read and do the assignment, what is going on? So here's what's going on. The Civil War is over. The process we call industrialization, or the Industrial Revolution, had really begun with the steam engine back in the late 1700s and then continued. You get railroads that are beginning to develop, especially in the north, factories that are being built. That's kind of known in textiles, that is anything made of cloth, the cotton gin. So that's fueling the cotton and the slave economy before the Civil War. So that's kind of known as the first industrial revolution. So then the Civil War is over and we have what's the second industrial revolution. And the second industrial revolution is driven by big business, huge corporations. Going away are the mom and pop stores, an integrated global economy, and the birth of what's called the Gilded Age. And the Gilded Age, in some ways like today, is identified with extreme wealth of a few individuals. So today you think of the Musk and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and others. Back then it was Carnegie, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan. They were your titans of industry. And there was very laissez-faire economics. Laissez-faire means the government stayed out, which means, and the idea behind laissez-faire economics was this: the government shouldn't get involved. It came from Adam Smith, father of capitalism, wrote a book called The Wealth of Nations, 1776. And he said, the economy works like an invisible hand. Supply and demand will regulate itself. And the government, if it just stays out of it, then the economy will chug along. So government should just stay out. The problem is, when the government stays out of it, you have big corporations that will employ children, because it's none of the government's business. You have big corporations and employers that will pay nothing, because you don't need a minimum wage. You just pay what the market demands, and if there's a lot of laborers, then you pay whatever you want to, and they should just be lucky to have a job. If you're a factory owner and you want to pollute down the stream, none of the government's business, and so you get environmental catastrophe. If it's none of the government's business, then as an employer, I have no obligation to make sure that my workplace is safe. People should be lucky to work there. And so you get machines, and you get mines, and you get children known as the breaker boys that are working in the pits and the mines, and you get children as pictured by Lewis Hine, who takes pictures of children working in factories, and adults and women, they get their limbs ripped off, they get killed all the time. Laissez-faire, none of the government's business. Now, as you'll see, then there's going to be a reaction to that, because people will be like, you know what, I think it is the government's business oftentimes to step in and to intervene in these situations. Nonetheless, this industrial growth, it's fueling the American economy, it's fueling the global economy too, and it's not just happening in the United States, it's happening in Europe as well, and it's resulting also in large-scale migration. See, because of the need for workers, you've got active recruitment of people, of workers, especially in Southern and Eastern Europe. So you're going to see large-scale immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe as well. Okay, but a big part of this as well, though, let's see, Gospel of Wealth, is because of the difficult working conditions, you're going to see that workers will start to realize their power. And their power is in numbers. And that is, there's more of us than there are of them. That is, that if we unite and we create what becomes the first unions, then we can demand better pay, better working conditions, better health care, all of the things. How about an 8-hour workday, 40-hour work week? After that, it's overtime. It's really interesting. Think about it in this way, and this is really important. When our country was founded, we created a constitution and government where we tried to limit the power of government because we feared that the government could become tyrannical, like George III in Parliament, and suppress people's rights. And so we put these things in place. And now it's 100 years later. That was 1776, Declaration of Independence. 1787 Constitution is written. 100 years later, 1876, 1887, Carnegie's building steel mills. You have these factories. And it's not the government that is taking people's rights. It's their employer. It's the corporation. They're forcing people. I mean, are you really free if you have to work 15 hours a day for 6 days a week? Though usually on Saturday it was just 8 hours. Sunday's off. Are you really free if your working condition is dangerous? Are you really free? Be like, I'm free. I can make my own money. But you can't even afford to pay for your family's meals or their health care? What is freedom? Is that freedom? And so it's ironic because it's not going to happen yet, because unions are going to have to get going. They're going to have to push for it. It's going to take the Great Depression. It's going to take the Progressive Era to begin to make things happen. But over time, ironically, that government for which we feared would suppress people's rights would become the protector of people's rights, as people would work to try to get the government to pass those laws to make for working safe conditions, that would make for minimum wage, that would try to provide the basic things that people need, because you can't be free if you're not safe, and you can't be free if you don't have food to eat. But that's gonna be a long time coming for sure. And there's a bunch of things that happen in this chapter. You've got the Homestead strike, a whole bunch of strikes, and here's the gist of the strikes. Never really ends well for the strikers. The government works with the employers, with Carnegie, with the Pullman Company to suppress the strikes, to go in and use brute force and the army to suppress the strikes. But not at all is lost, because they're sowing the seeds for the beginning of an organized labor movement that eventually will accomplish many of their goals. And one of the most important and influential or early labor leaders was a guy named Eugene Debs. And so your assignment this week got you listening to a really neat podcast called Throughline from NPR. Just check out the podcast. But the particular episode I have you listen to is about Eugene Debs. You're just going to listen to like the first first 40 minutes, because then they're going to get into him during World War I and post-World War I. It's really interesting, but I'm just trying to get you to see what Debs is doing as kind of a picture as to what's going on during the Gilded Age, when there's all this wealth, but there's also this huge inequality and so many problems created by industrialization and that disparity in wealth. And so that's where we'll leave off for this week. Next week, we're focusing on the West, because it is there that corporations are going to go to find the resources to fuel industrialization. But there's one little problem. There's people already there, Native Americans, but they can be removed if necessary, or killed if necessary. And that's what we're going to pick up next week. Good luck. Email me as always if you have any questions.